As head of the recently established Environment, Health and Safety Audit function within Ontario Hydro, the parent company of Hydro One, and had already managed to stir up some hornets in the organization in the days just before Hydro One was spun off. It quickly became obvious that John and I had very different, but potentially highly complementary styles. John was disciplined and focused and prudent, and I was instinctive, impatient, and lateral. That contrasting approach served us well as colleagues and friends for the next 24 years. It says a lot about John as a leader and as a person that he not only tolerated my radical ideas, but he nourished and celebrated them. Within a year, John agreed to take on responsibility in addition to internal audit for this mysterious new thing, enterprise risk management. Now, this was the year 2000, and there was little out there in terms of accepted practice, guidance, real success stories. The international standards for ERM are still years away. I know that John found the prospect of taking on accountability for this mysterious new thing both exciting and a little daunting. Remember, at the time Hydro One was a brand new company, John was brand new to the utility industry, and he already had his nets full trying to set up the best practice internal audit function and deal with a new and rapidly churning executive team at the time. A lot of turnover at the executive level. Shortly after he agreed to take on responsibility, he tapped me to come over from audit and help him do the ERM work. It was a wonderfully exciting time of invention and progress, and together with our colleague Nina Kirienko, we accomplished the kinds of things, the kinds of breakthrough things you only expect to have happen once in a career, if you're lucky. And through that time, our approach for moving things forward followed that same pattern. John's desire for principles-based, steady progress, using familiar approaches and tools, and my constant desire to tear everything apart and start all over with something new and exciting. John was not only patient, he continued to encourage my risk-taking and invention, and found ways to harness it, all the while providing wise, measured, supportive coaching. We worked like this for about 4 years, and with growing support and enthusiasm from our executive team, we built a program that, as Andrew mentioned, caught the attention of Harvard Business School, among others. Then I went off and did some other things for a while, only to rejoin John a few years later. And once again, we got into our groove of using our different thinking styles to come up with new and exciting ideas. As always, John was generous with his encouragement, and I always knew that he had my back. Then I got a very big promotion to another area of the company and was suddenly a vice president with a huge mess of operational problems. Shortly after my appointment was announced, John called me into his office and said he wanted to give me a bit of advice. Here's what he said. Always keep your desk clean. At first I thought this was a strange bit of counsel indeed, but at the time I came to realize how much wisdom there was packed in those 5 words. So basically this is what he meant in long form. With this new role you'll have a ton of challenges coming from many different directions. Maintain an orderly, principled approach to decision making. Deal with things one at a time. Patiently make a decision and then put it aside. Try to keep an uncluttered approach to everything. I found myself thinking about John's advice nearly every day, and yes, for the first time in my career, I actually did keep a clean desk. Then, after we had both retired from Hydro One, John and I entered into the 3rd chapter in our collaborative relationship, the textbook. We co-edited with the esteemed Oklahoma State University professor, Betty Simpkins. Once again, that old magical formula in our relationship came back, and through mammoth effort, we produced something that I know the 3 of us were immensely proud of. Now, it says much about John's determination and strength. The entire effort of conceiving of the book, scoping it, gathering the authors, editing text, proofing and packaging the whole thing, it's nearly 1,000 pages in length, and getting it released can happen in the years after his cancer diagnosis. Even after the book was finished, John continued to push for the 3 of us to publish articles and papers, to share more of our story, and plug the holes we thought we might have left in the final product of the book. In fact, he was still working on the last of these papers right into the final stages of Phyllis and Wendy. I promise we'll get that issue shortly. I never met anyone who worked with John for any period of time who had anything other than fantastic things to say about him. He was a composed and principled, supportive leader with a deep sense of moral integrity and values. He had become a big international figure, something of a rock star in the field of enterprise risk. And yet he was justifiably proud of his accomplishments. And yet he would often drop everything to freely offer free help and support to any and all who asked. I'm sure there are many in this room who could share stories of receiving his generous wisdom. I see that's not how I say that. From a personal perspective, it's hard for me to put into words that do justice to what John was to me as a boss, as a coach, as a colleague, as a co-conspirator, and as a friend. His impact on my professional career and my life was and is immeasurable. In fact, with the exception of my own father, I can think of no other person who had a bigger influence on my life than John did. He was a tremendous coach and mentor. He handed me many exceptional, life-changing opportunities. He had confidence in me, and I always strove to be worthy of that confidence. I owe him so much. Once again, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to pay tribute to John Fraser, and I'd ask we all raise our glasses and toast to John Fraser.